This week's episode of Fireside is brought to you by Legends of Belize and Wonders Oddities Expo.
Hello, everybody. You're listening to Fireside, Paranormal Podcast. My name is Jordan Cline. Have a great show planned out. My guest today, Joshua Chairs with Phantom Detectives. Before we get to him, just a few announcements.
Legends of Belize is a series about mythical creatures that dwell in the jungles and waters of Belize. The Belizean legends are captured, documented, and preserved like never before in a comprehensive art series and books with fully colored and detailed images of fine art by artists, authors, and award-winning animators Dismas and Grissy G. Discover the supernatural creatures that await deep in the jungles, such as the mysterious dwarf called Tata Duende with backwards feet, known to rip the thumbs off of trespassers, or the beautiful shape-shifting woman known to locals as the Ishtabai, who seduces drunks to never be seen again. These creatures and many more can be found in the Legends of Belize books. Learn about the cryptozoological, paranormal, and unexplained creatures that haunt Belize. Be fascinated, be terrified. Belize. Legend of Belize books are available in print and ebook. Buy your copy from your favorite online bookstore such as Amazon, KDP, Apple Books, and many more. Also be sure to visit legendsofbelize.com.
Did you know that 16% of Americans believe in Bigfoot? When they founded 16% Nation, they had no idea how popular it would become. Their products are designed to appeal to fans of all ages who appreciate the wit, humor, and mystery that surrounds these legendary creatures. For years, they felt alone in the cryptid enthusiasm, but now, thanks to 16% Nation, they know they're not alone. They've created a community where like-minded individuals who share the fascination with Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, and all things cryptid. They're proud to now be the world's #1 destination for cryptid-themed collectibles, apparel, and more. Go to 16nation.com and put code FIRESIDE at checkout for free shipping. 16% Nation is a new affiliate for the show, so definitely go show them some love. This past weekend was the Wonders Oddities Expo at the West Virginia State Penitentiary. Had a great time. Got to meet a lot of you guys. And what's really cool, I had a guy come up to the table. He's 11 years old, loves the show, and he asked me specifically, he said, "Can you say hi to me on the show?" So everybody sitting wherever you're sitting, if you're in your car, if you're sitting at work, sneaking some podcasting up on your hourly, I won't tell nobody, but deep down, in your heart, I want you to say, "Hey, Landon, how are you?" And we can all say hi to him together. I think it'd be a lot of fun, and he would really enjoy it. So, Landon, you're awesome. Keep listening to the show. All right, let's get into this week's featured story. This story comes in from Jennifer.
All right, I'm Jennifer, and I'm from Moundsville, West Virginia.
Perfect.
Goodness. All right, and you got me going. All right, so I have a vivid dream, and you got me blushing. All right, so I had a vivid dream, but it was actually real. I had the same mood, because I sleep with the TV on and everything like that, so it was the same thing that was going on. So really wasn't a vivid dream, but it felt like it. Yeah, had one. So it was I thought it was my daughter. Because I thought she put the blanket over her head because it was her size. Yeah. Was not, because but I wasn't scared. Wasn't scared at all. Didn't have any really creepy feelings. It was. It felt like that. It kind of felt like just a blanket. I thought it was my daughter, but it dissipated, and I'm like, okay, I'm going back to bed. And I don't know why I did. And then I again went back to sleep, and then I turned over, and then again, it's right next to my bed, and I could not see any features, but it was a cloaked figure, but I could definitely tell it was feminine. But it's not really. I guess it's not really scary, but I guess for other people it might be. But to me, I just think it was somebody watching over me.
You weren't scared at all?
Not, no, for once. Out of all the times I've been here, come on now.
Gotta ask.
But it's a creepy story, and it might give somebody other person the heebie-jeebies. Just watching you while you're sleeping. Because if you feel being watched, you're being watched. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And if you want your story to be one of our featured stories, make sure you send me an email, firesideparanormalpodcast@gmail.com.
How much do you really know about the paranormal? Can it ever truly be explained or understood? Many say no. I say bet. Hi, I'm Kristen, host of the Paranormal Girl podcast. My show is a binge-worthy, immersive education of the paranormal. Each season, we explore all aspects and angles of a supernatural topic, unraveling its mystery one fact, theory, or personal story at a time. Overcome your fear, celebrate the unknown, and arrive at a well-informed understanding by catching new episodes of Paranormal Girl anywhere you get your podcasts.
All right, I want to get to my guest. Join me by the fire as we welcome Joshua Chairs. He is with Phantom Detectives. Joshua, you with us?
Yes, I am here today, and I'm looking forward to having any questions that come in from your end and your listeners' end.
Hey, so, tell me about Phantom Detectives. I know you've done a lot with the paranormal, so we'll start with that, and then we'll do some deep dive.
Sure. So Phantom Detectives LLC is my own creation after reading a 1950s comic called The Phantom Detective. It was written, I think, around 55, 60. So, of course, I was watching Sherlock Holmes one day and Phantom of the Opera in August of 2020.
Yeah.
So I was on a previous paranormal investigation team at that time, but I decided I wanted to break free and start my own organization where I can build it from the ground up with my own, ideas. So what I did was I brought a previous member of that old team over to my new team. And what we did was we created social media pages, business cards. We also had a logo designed, and then we started doing investigations on the new banner. And our first pre-investigation was at a place called the Selma Mansion, which is in Norristown, Pennsylvania. And that night we had the opportunity to train with Brian J. Cano from the Haunted Collector TV show. Really great guy. He was the kind of like the tech manager on the show with John Zaffis.
I was about to say that was John's show, right?
Yes, it was. That was definitely John's show 100%. But Brian was kind of his right-hand person and set up a lot of the equipment and helped them plan the investigation. So he did a really great job teaching us how to hold an EMF meter, how to conduct EVPs, how to hold an SLS camera, how to run a spirit box. So we took all that knowledge.
Yeah.
And then went ahead and did our first investigation at the Sanderson Museum in Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania on December 9th, 2020 under the new banner.
So have you started in 2020 or?
Yeah.
Okay.
The company was founded on August 20th, 2020. And then, we started, going out there and, we had a website built from the ground up in late November of 2020, phantomdetectives.org. And we had a really fantastic team from India built it from the ground. They did a really beautiful job. And we have constantly added more and more to the website since that time. So we're very proud of our website and, how hard we work to help our clients that have paranormal activity, which is going on in their homes and businesses. So we've done 16 investigations so far, and getting better with every investigation.
Good deal. Now, how big is your team?
Currently, we have, I would say, about 4 members. Each member is very important, and they do like different things. First thing is myself, of course, which I am the director, founder, the team historian as well. I researched all the history and the locations. I know all the backstory of everything from what the paranormal activity associated with those locations. And then, of course, we have Mr. Rick Warner. Rick is not here today, but he is absolutely fantastic. He's the director of Extraterrestrial Research Center.
Oh.
So that is ERC, the number 2 Explorer.com, and he runs his own UFO organization. He, of course, is a former certified UFO field investigator through MUFON. He did all his training and classes through MUFON University, and then he was a part of the Delaware MUFON for a number of years, but then he decided he didn't like the way MUFON was going with all the different requirements, so he started Extraterrestrial Research Center, and he's also the U.S. ambassador to the Italian UFO Federation. He's a pretty amazing guy.
Wow.
And what's really great about him is he's also an expert at client interviewing clients and drawing out their stories. So he does a fantastic job of knowing how to do the field survey work. And then, of course, we have our psychic medium, Melissa Ferrazzano. Melissa is fantastic as well. She joined us in June of 2021, and she was studying mediumship under Cindy Kaza from the show The Holzer Files. I'm sure everyone's heard that
Okay,
show.
yeah.
And she is a psychic medium, life coach, also studied advanced development, shamanic healing, crystal healing, energy tapping, and she's absolutely amazing as well. She also serves as our case manager. I have trained her in that area where she can book the investigations, how to intake all the information from the clients that need help in their homes and businesses. And then, of course, we also have Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer. I'm sure you heard of him.
Yep.
Amazing guy himself. He's kind of our researcher, and he looks at our legal contracts before we sign anything. And he also helps us with behind the scenes work, researching haunted locations. So he is an author of 3 books. He's a 4th generation Oxford educated lawyer, and also advanced medium himself. He went to Arthur Findlay College in England, and also, of course, he solved various criminal cases as well. And he's a regular personality on Gaia TV and Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. So he does a lot of the behind the scenes work for us. And then, of course, we have our own graphics designer. He doesn't appear on the investigation team. He handles a lot of our, we have business cards or we need logos designed, stuff like that. His name's Raj. He's not here today either, but he's really good, designing our banners and all that.
Joshua, let me ask you, how did you build this team? Because it sounds like you got some really heavy hitters on there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I went ahead after doing the investigations on the new banner. We had our first lead investigator, and she actually was a Civil War historian. She was an engineer, like a sound engineer, and she did a lot of reenactments in Gettysburg. So she was our first lead investigator, and she was very good. She also built some of our own paranormal equipment. So what I did was, after we did our Mill of Anselma investigation in March of 2001, I came across Rick Warner of Phantom Detectives, and I said, hey, would you be interested in bringing your skills over from the UFO world into the paranormal investigation world? And, of course, he serves as our videographer and director of filming, too. So he brought his skills in from MUFON University, and he's really grown a lot in the last 2 years with us. And then when I asked him to join in January 2021, Mark joined as our researcher. Said, hey, I can work for you guys remotely from Florida when you have questions. So he joined as well on his own accord. And then Melissa, of course, she joined right before our Selma Mansion investigation in June of 2021. She, of course, it was amazing. She was recommended by Cindy Kaza from the Holzer Files to join us, because I noticed that she actually was local to our area. And I said, you know what? We don't have a psychic medium on our team. There's someone that can pick up readings, and if they can see like impressions and different things like that, and do psychometry and automatic writing, and we can find people like that that have that skill of mediumship, advanced medium like Melissa. She can really bring a whole brand new dimension into our investigation. So I invited her into the talent pool, and ever since then, she has been spot on with the history. I don't tell her no history of these locations that we go to, and almost over 90% accuracy on her readings.
That's impressive.
Yes, she does amazing. And what's amazing is, like, the first place that we went to with her in June of 2021, called the Selma Mansion. Mm-hmm. She's like, I'm sensing a connection to Lincoln. Is there a connection to Lincoln here? And then when I go back and check the history of the Selma Mansion, I find out General Andrew Porter, who actually served under George Washington in the American Revolution. Melissa actually was spot on, because he's actually the great grandfather of Mary Todd Lincoln.
What?
Yes. She is. I don't even tell her anything. She just knows the history. Then we did World's Largest Ghost Hunt in September of 2021, and then we went to Sanderson Museum. We went back to the same place that we went with our first investigation, because we only had 2 members at that time, me and my former team member. And then, of course, we had, the 2 other, Melissa and Brick joined them. And then it was amazing. She says, I'm sensing another connection to Lincoln in the museum. And then when I find out, I do research on the museum's history, I found out there's a bandage that was actually wrapped around President Lincoln's leg after he got shot by John Wilkes Booth in 1865 at Ford's Theater. And there was a bandage in the museum. So how did she pick up on that without even knowing the history? I have no idea.
Now, is she just going into every place saying, I don't know, I'm feeling Lincoln?
Like, a lot of times, yes. She, I I just give her no knowledge of that. She's a clairvoyant, so she can see the dead. She's a clairaudient. She can see the dead, and then she can also, with all her other skills, she's also a clairsentient because she can sense things, sense spirits. And the night that we had the Selma Mansion investigation, a lot of crazy stuff happened. A lot of her, she's like, I'm picking up, there's children's spirits up in this upper room of the Selma Mansion. And then when we set up our equipment up there, it was going off like crazy. And then we saw a door, like a little, door on the wall just fly open by itself. That was just a sample of her using her impressions. And then we set up the equipment in those areas and see if we can, set up EMF meters and, different motion devices to see what happens. And she was spot on.
That's incredible. Now, do you just focus on like spirits? Because you got like a big MUFON investigator too. Like, do you check out other aspects of the paranormal?
Oh, absolutely. I have researched these topics for many years. Like, mostly Phantom Detectives, which is my organization, focuses on ghosts, mediumship readings, stuff like that. And we do dive into Bigfoot sometimes. We're just starting to get more into that and survey, all that, starting to talk to Eric Altman, part of the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society.
Oh, yeah, I know Eric.
Great guy. And then we're also trying to, Rick, of course, has his own organization. We serve as consultants on his organization. Like if he has like a question where he needs a witness interview, something that we might have some expertise in, we'll jump in. But pretty much he's got his own standalone organization. But we do help out as like advisors to him when he needs us.
So cool. Now, where are you located?
We are located in probably the best place to have paranormal investigations. In my opinion, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is like one of the best places for history. You got the Declaration of Independence was signed here. The Constitution was signed here in 1787. You have you got Penhurst, you've got Fort Mifflin, you've got also Gettysburg. Yeah. I mean, you have Delaware, which is pretty haunted itself. We've done investigations down there. So, to me, this is like the mecca of paranormal, the paranormal hub of the world, like in Philadelphia, because there's so much history. Anyone that knows the history of this country, the country was started here, and then with all the different past history here, it's a pretty amazing place that we're right here where it all began. Yeah,
there's a lot of history in that area. I grew up not too far. I'm originally from Chesapeake City, Maryland.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an amazing place because I'm literally like 15 minutes from there.
Oh, come on now. Yeah, we used to, don't judge me, anybody listening, but we used to skip school some days and go out to Philly and, you got to get a cheesesteak. So that was, we'd take a little trip out.
Tailgating out here with the Eagles and Phillies games, you have to have a cheesesteak. It just makes it all that much better.
You got to. Yeah, so not too far. So much history in that area.
Oh, definitely. And I think what's amazing is when you research all the history, you got to factor in the Betsy Ross house. We were there, and that was Rick's debut investigation. And then, of course, you have the Liberty Bell. You've got the General Wayne Inn, which I actually had an investigation there in 2002. One of my early mentors in the field was Michael Lee Mayer, who had a Philadelphia paranormal investigation group in 2002. And back then, the equipment wasn't sophisticated as it was now. You might have
hands down.
A voice recorder and maybe a digital camera. That was
it.
Pretty much all the basic tools that you had, and maybe a Geiger counter if you're lucky to have one of those. But other than that, went down to the basement area and just take 3 digital pictures in a row. And according to the reports, people see a Hessian soldier from the Revolutionary War down there. And what was really weird, right in that area where Michael Lee was picking up on this Hessian soldier named Wilhelm, I took 3 pictures in a row, and one of the last photos had a green and yellow streaks of light, which kind of matches the eyewitness accounts of people seeing a Hessian soldier. And we used, of course, Polaroid back then because they were instant.
You're showing your age now.
Exactly. Yes.
That's when I first started doing investigations, things like that. It was literally you had a little voice recorder, your digital camera. Obviously a flashlight. You were really fancy if you had one that you could wear on your forehead.
Yeah.
That's how you knew you were a professional, right?
Absolutely. Because when you had one of those, you knew you had something that nobody else has.
You knew you meant business then. You're this
exactly.
is how you know you're pro. You get your little EMF detector. It's about it. I remember I did the ghost hunting 101 class with Sherry Brake in the West Virginia State Penitentiary. That was my first go. And I mean, we had like crystals on a string, dowsing rods. I mean, this was old school stuff. Now they got those like REM pods and teddy bears that start glowing and making noise and cat balls.
Yeah.
And there's so much stuff going on now.
I think a lot of it comes back because of shows and all that. Like, especially when Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters came out in 2004, Jason and Grant were pretty amazing because they kind of really helped pioneer all this. And
Hands
they kind
down.
of took like what Hans Holzer did in the 70s and Sybil leaked it and kind of magnified by 150% because they brought in like different kinds of devices. And, I know Jason Grant. I've been friends with them for a number of years. And a lot of times I'll see them at the paranormal convention. So what they did back then, they kind of helped lay the groundwork for Ghost Adventures in 2008, Paranormal State in 2007. And then, of course, Kindred, all these other shows, kind of all of it stems back from Ghost Hunters. They were kind of the first ones. And of course, Most Haunted in the UK with Yvette Fielding and Carl.
Yep. Now, there's a lot of big name paranormal folks that came out of Pennsylvania.
Oh, absolutely. Like Daryl Marston, who was on Ghost Hunters. He's from Middletown, Delaware, which is not too far from Chesapeake City.
Yeah, I lived in Middletown for a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I think quite a few other people are from that area as well. So there's a lot. Like you said, Eric Altman's from Pennsylvania. I can think of other people. I think Aaron Sagers, who was on Paranormal, I can't remember that. Oh, Paranormal Call on Camera. I think he lived in Pennsylvania one time, then he moved up to New York.
Yeah, well, Paranormal State. I had Heather Taddy on not too long ago. She lives there in Pittsburgh. Yep.
Small world. My best friend Gwen for Lizzie, she actually went to school with Heather and Katrina at Penn State.
How about that?
Very good with them and knows them very well. And I know Katrina, of course, grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, up towards Doylestown, that area. And, Gwen has been friends with both of them for many years. So I had the opportunity to meet Katrina. She's just a great person. And so is Heather Taddy. Heather, pretty amazing how she got her start with Ryan Buell in Paranormal State, then reached out into UFO research.
She does a lot of stuff now.
Yes,
a lot of stuff now. And you've been talking about Eric, a guy that works with him a lot, Tom Mihawk, real good friend. He's been on our show several times, even back when I had my previous radio show.
Awesome.
He was always a staple. He'd be the guy, like if I had somebody back out when we were doing live shows, he'd be like, just call me, and he's always ready. That's
so cool. And also, like, I started another project, which is pretty amazing. In 2014, I'd like to go through a little bit of my backstory. And this is called the Summerwind Restoration Society. Summerwind Mansion is known to be one of Wisconsin's most notorious haunted houses.
Okay.
It actually was built in 1914 as West Bay Lake Fishing Lodge. You can fish there for $4.99 a night. It was founded by a guy named John Frank from Akron, Ohio. And then what happened was he then sold the place to future U.S. Secretary of Commerce, Robert Patterson Lamont. And Mr. Lamont, told his servants, hey, that the house is. The servants told him the house was haunted, and Mr. Lamont said, hey, grow up. There's no such thing as ghosts. And then what's scary about the mansion, this is in northern third of Wisconsin, is actual. Mr. Lamont had a black powder pistol. He had it at the table one night with his wife, and he fired 2 shots. And his basement door flew up and forming the ghost of a man, and he left the mansion, never returned.
What?
Yes, this is on The Haunting of Summerwind, Season 1, Episode 2. And then, of course, the Kiefer family moved in after Mr. Lamont died in 1948. They tried to make it go to place, and, of course, they had owners over the next 20 years. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it go. People would just buy it and give it back to her. And it wasn't until the Hinshaw family moved in the summer of 1969, and there they started reporting a car. They would move in the first thing, the doors, they would nail the windows shut, and they would just fly open like that. There was
That's insane.
The car supposedly called on fire with no reasonable explanation. Tools, like workers would be hammering, nails on tools, and they would disappear. And then, of course, Mr. Henshaw, of course, who is Ginger Henshaw's wife, there was a report of the book called The Carver Effect, A Paranormal Experience, written in 1979 by Wolfgang von Bober. Actually, he supposedly played the organ at all hours of the night. He went mad. and he was committed to a mental institution in was basically somewhere in Canada. And then of course Ginger tried committing suicide, according to the reports of the book. And then what happened was, Ginger sold the property back to Miss Kiefer, and then Miss Kiefer gave it to Ginger's father, Ray von Bober's senior, who was a popcorn vendor from Chicago. And Ginger's like, don't buy this house, it's bad, evil. And of course, Mr. Bober basically said, well, my daughter's just, making tall tales up. Then when he started having experiences there, his son Ray was upstairs one day painting in one of the rooms doing renovations, and then he heard gunshots down in the kitchen area. He flew down there, and then he saw visions of the bullet holes that were there back in the 1930s when Mr. Lamont was there. And then, of course, they ran into similar problems with the Hinshaws. Tools would break down. They would measure rooms on the. I have the original blueprints to Summerwin Mansion in Wisconsin, and those blueprints actually supposedly they would measure them, to length and the width of the room, and they would change shape. So this actual mansion was known to change shape. The rooms was known to change shape, and then what happened was, of course, they couldn't make it go to the place again. So it was then Miss Kiefer died in 1985, and it went to another couple purchased it by the name of Harold and Babs Tracy. They live up in La Crosse, Wisconsin. They actually reported one night when they went up to summer when Mr. Tracy bought the property as a wedding anniversary present for his wife in 1985 when they went up to.
Don't give my wife any ideas.
And they actually reported the mansion was actually inhaling, like taking a life on its own. But unfortunately, on Father's Day of 1988, the place burnt down on Father's Day. And according to an actual neighbor that lived at Summerwin, actually what happened was they supposedly that he actually reported that the township itself got tired of people trespassing and legend tripping on the mansion. And, of course, they actually took bales of hay and they leveled the place, because they got tired of all the trespassing. But the problem is it was private property, it belonged to somebody else, but the town took it upon itself. But there's no proof of this because it was all done under the cover of night.
Yeah.
And back then they didn't have security cameras like in 1988, so you couldn't know what was going on. But when the place was leveled in 2014, I actually, after seeing that episode, I saw the blueprints were for sale. It said original blueprints, so I emailed the seller, and it turned out to be Ray Von Bover Jr., who lived there in the 70s. His dad died in 2005, and then Ginger, his sister, died in 2013. But he had the original diagrams, so I bought them. And this is the diagrams for Wisconsin's most notorious haunted house.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So what I did was I reached out to a contact out there in 2014 named Craig Naring. And of course, Craig actually was friends with the Tracys. He did a number of paranormal investigations out there. They're called the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters. They're very well known in the UP of Wisconsin. So we created the Summerwind Restoration Society. I sent him the original blueprints, and then of course he, worked on site. So he actually, we're trying to rebuild this haunted house in Wisconsin, which is going to be pretty amazing. No one's ever rebuilt a haunted house. So the idea is absolutely amazing to do this. You just got to come up with funding, and maybe we can turn it into a museum, and so hopefully Craig and the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters can rebuild that. But that was kind of one of my first projects in the paranormal.
That's really crazy. So what was the purpose? I guess not only rebuilding, right, the haunted house, so that you could have a good idea what happened, but were you trying to see if the hauntings would spark back up?
Exactly, because especially the place burned down in 1988. We wanted to try to, if people were trespassing still on the property, even the ruins of Summerwin, because all that remains today are the two tall chimneys, the foundation, and the steps. So the idea is to open up as a museum where everyone can enjoy, and now people trespassing can come out and enjoy the property and do it, so we can open up as a paranormal hub. So the idea is to investigate it as it is with the ruins, and then investigate it after it's rebuilt and see if the activity actually increases with all the renovations, because usually they say anytime you modify or change a structure, it'll cause the activity to spike up like you wouldn't believe. So this place is definitely still very haunted, and hopefully someday it gets rebuilt, because I think it would be a huge success, and it could become like the Zach Baggins Haunted Museum in the Midwest.
There you go. That's exciting. That's cool.
Thank you.
So you've done some other things too. I know we were talking before. You did something with Coast to Coast. What was it?
Sure. So I actually worked with a couple producers of the legendary late night radio show host Art Bell.
So
Um,
cool. So cool.
and I actually booked all their guests and all that. So one time in 2015, I had called up to one of Art's former producers in California and said, "Hey, would you be interested in booking Craig and Kevin from the Summer Wind Project on your show?" So of course they said yes. And at the time, Kevin Malick was still alive. Him and Jennifer Skelsey hosted Paranormal Universe. Kevin, of course, was founded the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society. So they were the kind of supporting society with Fox Valley trying to rebuild the company. So I ended up then basically that producer and I became very good friends, and then I ended up being like his guest booker over the next couple of years, and brought a fantastic job. We brought some of the largest guests in the world, and I also worked with his Art's former affiliate director in 2016. So that was pretty amazing as well. She was very talented, and she was his affiliate director, read the news for him. So, and then of course in 2021, we bought Dark Matter News to, keep Art Bell's memory alive, and then of course, pay tribute to him. So we kind of keep it alive as like a tribute brand.
Yeah.
What he stood for, because he was the first late night radio show host to really dive into these topics back in the early 90s before anybody else had ever done it. He's kind of the forefather of this generation. So Dark Matter News was the news service that was a part of his final return ever. So to have that slice of that legacy is very special, and I want to share it with the paranormal community.
That's a huge thing. It's a big deal, right? Art is a big deal.
Oh, he really is. And here's something funny. I actually became very good friends with his eldest son, Vincent Pontius, who lives an hour right in Philadelphia from me. So Vincent actually and I have developed a close friendship, and I just found out recently that Vincent told me Art has another son that lives in Philadelphia. His name is Chef Kevin Yananga, and he has his own sushi restaurant right in Philadelphia as well. And he's actually one of Art's fourth sons. Actually, Art had four sons and two daughters. So knowing to have two of Art's sons near me, what a coincidence that is.
Now, are they into the paranormal too? Do you know?
Vincent is, yes. I don't know much about Chef Yananga yet, because I want to call him on Tuesday and really talk to him about his father and how he died in 2018. In fact, it was my text message that Coast to Coast used when Art passed away to announce his passing. So it was a very sad moment when he passed away, because I know he had OCPD, he smoked a lot. So I just think that unfortunately his lungs gave out, and he had a prescription drug overdose, so that led to his passing. So the oldest son, is absolutely into these topics. He's listened to his dad over the years, and of course he started researching it himself. So Vincent's a pretty amazing guy.
I remember the first time. I was born in '84. The first time I heard of Art, I was in third grade, right?
Really?
Yep. And it was in our school books. There was a thing on him in our school books. Right after, I think, was it Vietnam he was in?
Yeah, he was also, he actually served as a medic, in the, I think in the Air Force, and also, of course, he fought in the Vietnam War, I believe. And of course, he had the only English-speaking radio station out in Okinawa. Mm-hmm. In fact, to this day, I believe he still holds the Guinness Book of World Record holder for endurance broadcasting.
That's what I was about to talk about. Yeah. So it was a section on sleep, and he was raising money to pretty much set a lot of orphans free and take care of an orphanage. And he ran, was it how many hours? Do you remember offhand?
115, 116.
Yeah.
And the only English-speaking radio station out in Okinawa. So my assumption is Kevin Yananga. Of course, Vincent was born in the 60s, like mid-60s. So in my opinion, Kevin was probably born like after Art's divorce with first wife Sajiko Taguchi Bell Pontius, but also before his second wife, Vicky Baker, who they had Art Bell before. So somewhere in that range, I think Kevin was born, and that was when Art was out in Okinawa doing, he was really becoming, he had his amateur radio license at the age of 13 or 14, according to what I was told by his former producers.
Yeah, such a cool guy, But for those of you that don't know, like, he stayed on the air raising money for this orphanage. but he stayed on the air, and all the hallucinations, and like I think he said like hour 36 he started to hallucinate and things like this, but he spoke through it all, explained everything that was going on.
Oh yeah,
It was nuts.
he really was, and especially listening to some of his legendary interviews from like Malachi Martin when he talked about exorcisms in '96, Madman Markham in '95 with this Missouri factory worker who stole a time machine. He started talking about time travel in '95 with Madman, of course, and then his interviews with John Lear and Linda Moulton Howe. I mean, it's stuff of legends. And when he was kind of like being the first paranormal radio host in the night, doing these topics, talking about things that nobody else. You was thinking all of a sudden you're looking over, like, hey, is there something nearby? And he gave people a platform, like the truck drivers and so forth, for them to call in and share their stories on the road, and Air Force pilots where they would see UFOs in the sky. It was pretty amazing stuff. And of course, I always remember the caller who called in their Area 51 back in '97. That is still one of my most memorable moments of his show.
Yeah. Art was awesome. I loved listening. I missed listening. George is fun to listen to. I think there are differing opinions, but opinions, are like I'll say armpits. Right?
One thing I can say about George is he never misses a show. He's there every night. Unlike my former boss, who she was Art's protege, but unfortunately she's unavailable right now. She lost her mind. I'll leave it at that. But one thing about George is he's been there every night for the last 20 years. So you have to give him credit for that. And he's got his own platform of loyal listeners. And, of course, he's got, Paranormal Date and all these other infomercials. So at least I give him credit for keeping Art's legacy alive on Coast, because he's done a fantastic job.
Very, very much so. Very much so. So let's get back into you and your group, right? So tell me, you said you've done like 16. Do you do residential locations? Do you do like the bigger, like the prisons, hospitals, that kind of thing? Where's your go-to? What do you like to do?
We actually do it all. We do historical societies, homes, businesses, asylums. I mean, we really are a historical group. We do investigate buildings that are over 100 years old, but we do residential cases. And what was amazing is our first ever residential case was at a place in August of 2021. This is recorded on the Dark Hour Paranormal show with Michael Roser, who's a really nice guy. And this client had reported, the beds were being pulled off the sheets. He also showed some strange markings on his legs. The kind of was supposedly he believed he was abducted by a UFO. There was also, some different voices, spirit voices that were going on throughout this apartment. So we went in there, and with, when the minute that we arrived in that apartment, we had felt like there was like a lot of pressure on our chests, like someone was there watching us. And what was amazing was from the minute that we left that apartment, we didn't feel the same. It took weeks for us to feel better. And during that investigation, we had some crazy stuff happen. We were scanning the ghost box, AM and FM suite, basically.
Yeah. I love stories. You're right up my alley right now, Josh.
Oh, you know it. And we actually use the S box from Ghost Stop, which in my opinion is better than the PSP7 and PSP11 because it has internal storage. It backs up all your sessions. And when we went to do playback from that investigation, we actually, like Melissa asked the question, hey, is there an older woman here? Is this her home? And then we got this whisper that said, this EVP we caught that said, right here, like right here. So we captured it like an EVP right around the time, then we also got these potty mouth spirits where basically this older woman and her daughter were cussing us out on the ghost box. And then when Rick, Melissa, and our former team member went into this client's bedroom, you can really feel like they actually were picking up using the scan, the dowsing rods, and they got a lot of yes answers, and we were picking up on a 19-year-old young man who took his life there.
Oh,
so
wow.
Pretty wild investigation that night. And of course, the next investigation was even crazier when we went back to Sanderson for World's Largest Ghost Hunt 2021, because we were there that night. And then we actually went downstairs. Melissa and Rick went downstairs to get some more equipment out of our bags. And all of a sudden, it was weird because we didn't have a camera in this room at this time, but we had our 4-camera DVR system all set up and wired. But the problem was, Rick and Melissa went downstairs and they reported all the equipment bags were piled up in front of the steps. So how that happened, and Melissa and Rick had asked, my former team member, hey, did you guys put these equipment bags right in front of this place? And we're like, no, there's no way that we could have done it because we were upstairs in the violin room, the most active room in the museum.
Man.
So for those equipment bags to move by themselves, that was pretty wild stuff. And then
I mean, they got some weight to them too, right?
Oh yeah, you got to factor. These are like standard duffel bags, like the size of a book bag almost, or a carrying bag. And so for these things, like to be piled up full of equipment like this, like they're almost piled up single file. I have no reasonable explanation. Then we did Phantom Time, which is our version of the EVP session, because we have to have the Phantoms talk to us on our voice recorders. And what we captured an EVP that basically said, "Are you trying to pile equipment bags and block us from leaving?" And we captured this word that said, "Be afraid, be afraid." So the Sanderson Museum is pretty amazing because Mr. Christian Sanderson was a poet. He was a museum curator. He did a lot of square dances. He was a radio show host, and he had a lot of.
That's what topped it off, though, right?
Yes,
it was the square dances.
So, and what was wild was, not only that, but the night that we were there is, besides doing World's Largest Ghost Hunt, we actually just found out in history, looking at some of the historical things in the building, we found out that his mother actually had died from tuberculosis there back in the 1940s.
Oh, man.
So my assumption was it was either whoever spirits that were there, it was probably Christian and his mother, and one of them probably piled them equipment bags right in front of the main entrance of the building. So that was pretty amazing stuff.
So, like, with all the experience that you've had, you've done a lot of stuff. You've surrounded yourself with some like big names in the paranormal community, right? So,
Yes.
like, you've had experiences that most investigators would only dream of. So, like, what is it that scares you?
I would say going into these locations, knowing exactly what is actually haunting these places, because a lot of times you got to factor in, like, we had just had a case in November where this client had reported seeing like demonic activity, and this was like a case that I really did not want to do, but I know this homeowner was asking for help, and they found us on the directory for paranormalsocieties.org, which is the successor to paranormalsocieties.com. And then, of course, the client, when they found us, they say, "Hey, we need some help here. We're reporting, like, our kids are seeing things, in the basement area, are terrified to go down there." So we had to prepare ourselves. So what really scares me is going into these places. We got to be prepared. We always bless ourselves with holy water. We say St. Michael the Archangel's Prayer, the Lord's Prayer, and then, of course, we also wear rosaries on our, on our necks. And of course, we also had to prepare, for this place because it was so different than any other case. But we helped the client. We were able to burn sage. We went in with respect. So what really scares me is, like, what can attach itself to you after an investigation. That's why you have to be, have a spiritual defense. And that's something Dave Giuliano from the Ghost Hunter store taught me, is to be on your, on guard, be respectful to the history, say please and thank you. But also, you at the same time, make sure that you're properly, that you have all the defenses to take care of yourself. Because if you don't burn yourself with sage, something could attach itself to you, and there could be even more problems you could have.
What is it that you think, with your experience, what are spirits?
To me, like, Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, actually really dived into his new book, The Afterlife Frequency, where he likes to call spirits this electromagnetic soul. The law of energy states that energy moves from one form to another and cannot be created nor destroyed, but move from one. So if these spirits are physically dying, and the law of energy states they're moving from one form, they're moving from a human form to like a static electricity, electromagnetic fields. So they're trying to manifest themselves by using our equipment and using our bodies as like a projector to project themselves to us. So I definitely think that these spirits are, people that are former, they're living or dead, or we like to classify these as 4 types of hauntings, which are intelligent hauntings, which we've had a lot of interaction with. Those directly interact with the living. We've also, of course, residual hauntings, which is like Gettysburg. And think about the battle of 50,000 people.
Oh, for sure,
losing their lives in 3 days. That is kind of my example of a residual haunting. It's a past memory that plays itself over and over again. And then, of course, we have, poltergeist, which is the case up in the Bothell Hell House with Keith Linder up in Washington, where he has supposedly levitating plants. Definitely got to check him out as a guest. He's a pretty amazing guy.
Wow.
And then, of course, demonic hauntings, like which I just gave that example of that client in November, DH basically, who was having demonic activity in his basement area. So those are the most four classifications: intelligent hauntings, residual, poltergeist, and of course, so that's pretty much. It's very important to have a good understanding of all these places, because the more knowledge that you can have, and the more experience that you have, the better you're going to be off.
So would you say that the majority of hauntings you come into contact with, would you say they're more intelligent or residual?
I would say at this point, we haven't had any kind of residual hauntings yet. Every single, case that we've done has always had an intelligent response, because we set up equipment and the equipment goes off like crazy. And a lot of times what will happen is we will go into one room, like for example, in Melissa's debut investigation, like I was, they were upstairs in the doll room, and I was downstairs because I was, had of course I got my COVID vaccines then, so I was kind of, out of commission for the rest of the night, just kind of manning the car system, and we would set up a REM pod in the piano room downstairs in the Selma mansion, and then of course the thing would go off like crazy when I was down there. I would walk to that room, it would stop, all of a sudden pick up again, and then of course, we also picked up some amazing thermal images, which are on our website, phantomdetectives.org. We've captured apparitions at Booby's Brewery and Mount Joy. You can see like three, figures with like wearing tank tops. I mean, we've captured some amazing stuff. We've even at the Anselma Mill up in Chester Springs, which is like an old mill that dates back to 1747. We had this door fly open by itself, and there was nobody there. It wasn't bolted shut. There was nobody else on the property that night. And this was one of those old-fashioned 17th, 18th century doors. So for that thing that's like a 200-pound door, the latch will lift up and fly open. I have no reasonable explanation for it.
Wow. Yeah, I always love stories like that.
It's pretty amazing stuff. And we've also been featured on numerous radio shows. We've been featured in Paranormal Underground magazine, American Paranormal Design with Kim Tomlinson. She's really nice. We've also been featured in Paranormality with Aaron Deese. So we're really excited to really grow this brand and show ourselves to the world how what up and coming teams are that we're putting the work in. And then what's amazing was we also been on the local news down in southern Delaware. We were at the lightship Overfalls, which is this old lightship down in Lewis. And the night that we were there, we actually captured a Class A EVP. That was one of the most amazingest things ever. That's available on our website under EVP. So every EVP that we have, we post on our EVP page for people to enjoy. So pretty amazing stuff. We've captured so much evidence in our first 16 investigations, and there's so much more to come.
That's exciting. Big things in the works for y'all. Big things.
Absolutely. We keep working, and the one thing is we always try to help our clients. We stay client-centered. And
that's good.
Really, really exciting that we're going to have up and coming future projects that we have. Well, the first one, of course, is we're going to be appearing as a vendor at, the biggest paranormal convention on the East Coast. We will be at Pennhurst Paracon 2023.
Very cool.
A vendor table. Jason from, of course, Ghost Hunters will be there. I believe Dakota Ladden and Chelsea Ladden from Destination Fear. Also, the Ghost Brothers are going to be there. Kindred Spirits. So there's a lot of big name and people that are going to be coming. And so to be in the company of some of the biggest names on the planet at Pennhurst is very special for us. And then, of course, we're going to be we're looking to eventually do a Patreon where we teach people how to investigate the paranormal. We'll offer our clients tiers where they can get subscriptions, and this will help us for equipment costs and driving to locations, hotel costs. So because we also have a legally operating LLC, so we have to make sure that we have all of our tax stuff and all taken care of.
Yeah. You got to make sure it's
Patreon
covered.
will help us. And we got some of the most state-of-the-art equipment in the world. I mean, we got a brand new SLS camera that has 2 and 3D mapping from Todd Sylvia, Relatively Paranormal, really great guy. We also just picked up a brand new, we got electric dowsing rods now, lighted dowsing rods.
Electric dowsing rods?
Yes, these are lighted. These are from North Canton Paranormal Detectives. They actually light up in the dark. They work absolutely amazing.
That's fun. All right, so while we wrap it up, I want to make sure people can follow you, can find you, can contact you. Where are you online, and are you open to folks reaching out to you?
First thing is, yes, we are absolutely open to everyone reaching out to us. We are on 5 directories now. So fortunately, on paranormalsocieties.com, Bill Wilk disappeared, who originally created paranormalsocieties.com. But unfortunately, that site was left abandoned in June 2020 because no one's heard from him since. But the beautiful thing is his friend Josh Vandy created paranormalsocieties.org. So if you know anybody that has paranormal teams that want to register for the new directory, it's paranormalsocieties.org. So he built a brand new website that is like paranormalsocieties.com with more features. So Josh was a friend of Bill's. So we're listed on paranormalsocieties.org, paranormalzine.com, ghostwatch.net. Also, we're listed on several other directories. So the ghostaddict.com. So we have all the directory listings, and now we have 5 websites. So people can reach us on these 5 websites, which are the first one is Melissa. If you want to reach her, our psychic medium, Melissa Ferrazzano, she can be reached at psychic, all one word, psychicmediumautumn.com. Psychicmediumautumn.com. That's her website. If people need readings done or want to know how to communicate with their loved ones or need any kind of casework, send it to our case manager if you have any locations for us to check out. So Melissa's psychicmediumautumn.com. Mark, Anthony the psychic lawyer, psychic explorer, he can be reached at afterlifefrequency.com. That's all one word, afterlifefrequency.com. To reach Mr. Rick Warner, you can reach him at ERC, the number ERC, the number 2, explore.com. So that's ERC2explore.com, and that's his UFO organization. And to reach me, if you want to reach me on Dark Matter News, it's all one word, darkmatternews.com. And of course, you can also, our social media pages are linked up on, if you want to follow Dark Matter News on Facebook or Instagram, you can just go to click the bottom of darkmatternews.com, and the social media buttons are down there. And then, of course, our team website, drum roll, is Phantom, Phantom, just like the t-shirt, phantomdetectives.org. So it's PHANTOMDETECTIVES, phantomdetectives.org. And we also have a Discord server there, and you can also like our pages and follow us right on our social media pages or right on that website as well.
Very cool. You're everywhere. If you want to reach out, you can find him somewhere.
Absolutely.
I like it.
So many outlets. I mean, having a Discord server I thought was something really cool because not a lot of paranormal teams are doing Discord right now. I was thinking, you know what? This could be a really great idea. So I had my webmasters program a Discord server. So when clients need investigations done, or if, paranormal enthusiasts or anybody that's in the field that want to contact us, they can just hop right on Discord, go to the Rules channel, click the green check mark, and you're in, and boom, you can chat with us live. So it's a great way for fan interaction. So I love it, and I love improving and growing. And of course, we have our YouTube channel too. Right now, we're currently looking for a new network to air our investigations. We're trying to talk to Dark Matter TV, of course, FilmRise, Amazon Prime. We're looking for a place that house Phantom detectives, because the great thing is Rick is also really talented at filming. So it's great to have. So we just kind of we have a 3-person team, but I've noticed smaller teams seem to be more effective than larger teams, at least in my experiences.
It's quality over quantity. I almost said that backwards.
Yes. And what's neat is, I think once we get done, I think we're going to be doing some more investigations in Southern Delaware in the near future. And of course, we're hoping to do eventually some public investigations where people can come investigate with us. And then of course we'll work out some of the costs with the location managers, may split the revenue. So that's something, of course, in the works for next year, where people can meet us at some of these haunted locations and investigate with us, and we can teach people how to do it. Of course, we're giving lectures now and all that too.
That's so cool. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Go out, everybody. Go support Phantom Detectives. It looks like you got a good group, in the works there. You're gonna blow up with this thing. I like it.
I think so too, and it's all about just staying humble, putting the work in, building a client-centered team, and everything takes a number of years. I think I was talking to Jason and Grant one time. They said that Jason, it took about a good 10 years of work before he got on national TV. But I think that we're definitely heading in that direction with appearing on local TV now, and in making the newspaper, being featured in Paranormal magazine. So it's just all about putting the work into it. The more that you keep at it, the better you get.
That's right. That's right. All right, man. Thank you so much, and we will talk again.
Sounds great.
Hey, you have a good night.
You too.
And with that, the fire is out. Thank you so much to Joshua. Thank all of you for listening. Like I say every time, I appreciate you guys so much. If you haven't had the opportunity to connect with me online yet, go to Fireside Paranormal Hub on Facebook. Also on Twitter at Fireside Parapod, Parapod. Also on Instagram, TikTok, and Patreon. If you haven't become a patron yet, patreon.com/Fireside Paranormal. You're missing out if you're missing out. I do want to give a shout out to one of our brand new patrons, Cassie Stefanak. You might remember her from a past episode with Weeping Willow Paranormal. Cassie, thank you so much for joining us. As a patron, you get bonus audio, behind-the-scenes interviews, the interview-only section of the show. There is some merchandise, shout-out on the show, and a private Discord server. So, again, patreon.com/Fireside Paranormal. Make sure you go to the website, firesideparanormal.com, to get that sweet, sweet Fireside merch. You definitely don't want to miss out on that. That is all the time we have for this week. Until next week, everybody, don't be afraid. Only believe.